I'm sure you've heard the news, though. The year was 1929. America was riding high. The Roaring Twenties had brought prosperity and confidence. People danced the Charleston and invested in the stock market, but this boom masked underlying problems. On October 24th, 1929, panic selling gripped the New York Stock Exchange. Share prices plummeted, fortunes were wiped out. Black Thursday, as it became known, marked the start of the Great Depression. The crash sent shockwaves through the American economy. Banks collapsed, businesses failed, millions lost their jobs and homes. Soup kitchens and bread lines became a common sight. The American dream turned into a nightmare for countless families. The world watched in disbelief as the seemingly invincible American economy crumbled. The crisis in America soon rippled across the Atlantic. European nations, still recovering from the First World War, were particularly vulnerable. American banks, hit hard by the crash, recalled loans from European borrowers. This choked off vital credit lines. International trade, already slowing, ground to a halt. Germany, burdened by war reparations, was hit especially hard. Britain, once the world's economic powerhouse, also suffered mass unemployment and social unrest. Latin America, heavily reliant on exports to the United States, saw its economies collapse. The Great Depression was truly a global crisis, affecting millions in both rich and poor nations. In Britain, the impact of the Depression was severe. Unemployment soared. Shipyards and factories lay idle. The government, committed to balancing the budget, implemented harsh austerity measures. These cuts to social spending deepened the misery for millions. Working-class communities, particularly in the industrial north, bore the brunt of the crisis. Hunger marches and protests became common. The government's response, seen as callous and out of touch, further eroded public trust. The legacy of the Depression would cast a long shadow over British politics and society. Few countries suffered more than Germany. The Weimar Republic, already fragile, was pushed to the brink. Hyperinflation had ravaged the economy in the early 1920s. Now, mass unemployment and social despair created fertile ground for extremism. The Nazi Party, led by the charismatic but dangerous Adolf Hitler, exploited the crisis to gain support. They promised to restore Germany's greatness and provide jobs. In 1933, Hitler became Chancellor, marking the beginning of the Nazi dictatorship. The world would soon learn the terrible consequences of Germany's descent into darkness. Section 5, Global Trade, Paralyzed, Protectionism Takes Hold. As the crisis deepened, nations retreated inwards. Protectionist policies aimed at shielding domestic industries became widespread. Tariffs and import quotas were erected. International trade, the lifeblood of the global economy, slowed to a trickle. This beggar-thy-neighbor approach only served to worsen the situation. By stifling trade, countries further damaged their own economies and those of their trading partners. The collapse of international cooperation was one of the most damaging legacies of the Great Depression. Section 6, Roosevelt's New Deal, a beacon of hope. In 1933, Franklin Delano Roosevelt became President of the United States. He promised a new deal for the American people. Roosevelt's administration implemented a series of ambitious programs designed to provide relief, recovery, and reform. The New Deal put people to work on public projects, such as building dams, roads, and schools. It provided financial assistance to farmers and the unemployed. It also introduced reforms to the banking system and financial markets. While the New Deal did not end the Depression, it provided hope and a safety net for millions. It also demonstrated the important role government could play in managing the economy. Section 7. The Dust Bowl. Ecological disaster compounds misery. As if the economic crisis wasn't enough, a natural disaster struck the American heartland in the 1930s. Severe drought and poor farming practices transformed the Great Plains into a dust bowl. Millions of acres of farmland turned to dust, forcing families to flee their homes. The Dust Bowl refugees, often called Okies, traveled west in search of work and a better life. Their plight, captured in John Steinbeck's novel The Grapes of Wrath, became a symbol of the hardship and resilience of the American people during the Depression. Section 8. Echoes of the Crash. Lessons from a Dark Chapter. The Great Depression was a defining moment in modern history. It exposed the flaws in the global economic system and the dangers of unfettered capitalism. It also highlighted the devastating social costs of mass unemployment and poverty. The lessons learned from the Depression shaped the post-war world. Governments adopted more active roles in managing their economies. International institutions such as the International Monetary Fund and the World Bank were created to promote global financial stability and cooperation. Section 9. Conclusion. The enduring legacy of the Great Depression. The Great Depression may be a distant memory, but its legacy endures. It serves as a stark reminder of the fragility of economic prosperity and the importance of social safety nets. It also underscores the need for international cooperation and responsible financial regulation. As we navigate the complexities of the 21st century, we must heed the lessons of the past. We must strive to build a more equitable and sustainable world, one where the hardships endured during the Great Depression are never repeated.